Welcome back. Today we are talking with Regina Phelps about leadership in times of crisis. Regina, great first and second segment. Now let's move on to the next point.
Great. So once we've had our decision, which we hopefully have gotten from somebody that you work closely with and done exercises and you practiced and you've got support and blah, 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 then of course, then what you have to do is you have to communicate the decision and you have to communicate the direction. And that's a really important issue. And I think, first of all, we want to make sure that we are setting realistic expectations about that issue of communication. And I find sometimes that's not so clearly done. You need to communicate in all possible ways. And I think this is another great example of where exercises are really important. How many times have you heard from communications teams that, oh, yes, we're really smart and we can figure it out at the moment and we're going to design everything in advance? Or never, we're going to make it not in advance. You're going to basically write all the communications in real time so that they're 100% accurate. We don't need templates. Have you ever heard that?
I unfortunately do hear that a lot. And then I also hear the next part after that. And then when legal has reviewed it,
Right.
no,
Right. Shoot me, shoot me, shoot me.
shake my head like, oh my God.
Yes. So just imagine that we've gone through all of the stages that we've talked about, and you're moving along. You've had this, you've been creative. You've had to collaborate. You've had design things on the fly. You've had great leadership. You've made a decision, blah, 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 blah. And then we get down to communicating it. Oh my gosh. To your point, that's another failure that I see often. And I'm not picking on my comms colleagues, but oh my gosh, it's a complicated problem. And part of that is that, and I think we might have even done a segment on this sometime in the years we've been talking, but the idea of having a clear strategy and governance plan for communications in advance. Because communications are only good if they are timely. And just what you just said a moment ago, the comms were written and then they went to legal. And then what happens, Alex?
Oh, then it usually goes through a dozen rounds of reviews and changes. Meanwhile, the clock is ticking and your crisis is still moving forward.
Right. And in our day of social media, if there is a vacuum in the information highway, there are people that will happily fill it up for you, right? People on the street, people, your employees. I mean, everybody will be talking about what's going on, and you have not shared a thing. So one of the things that I beg my clients to develop, and I don't know if anybody rags on this besides me so much. I call it a governance plan or a governance document for communications that clearly spells out 3 simple little things. I say simple when it's not really simple, but you know what I mean. So the first thing is that who has the authority to write communications? So who can write them? That should be clearly noted. Secondly, who has the authority to edit them? Oh my gosh, that alone is a sinkhole of time. Because you see a comms get written. Okay, finally, okay, we got it written. Then what happens? It starts the circulation through the people who feel they can opine. I don't like that comma. I don't like that word there. We need to, and that can suck all the time out of the room.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want that. I don't want that. I want to know clearly who has the authority to edit anything, which could, maybe it's legal and maybe it's certain executive, whatever. Then once I know who can write it, who can edit it, then the last one is who can approve it. And if you want effective communications, the most important thing for you to do is to get that worked out with your comms team, primarily in legal, and your executives, so that not everyone feels that they have the right to opine on everything. Then your chances of getting timely comms out are much better. because communications are only really effective if they are timely. Otherwise, then what you are is that you're constantly defending and pushing back on what everybody else has said about you,
Yes.
right?
And now you've got two situations to deal with, a PR one and the
Right.
actual situation itself.
Right, right. And I can't emphasize that enough. And I think most companies generally fail relatively miserably on this topic, which is really heartbreaking to me.
Well,
But I
I
mean,
remember writing a crisis management and communications plan for a company, and what we did at the back, we had about a dozen different templates that were
mhm.
all, here's what we would say initially, here's what
That's
our
what you could
follow-ups would
do.
be. And they were all worded and with just blanks for the detail that needed to go in. So
Mhm.
that it cut out all the reviews that needed to be done. We just had to slot in the
Mhm.
situation. The first one was always the one we'd use, and then depending on the situation, you could pick one from the other templates. If
Right,
something else needed to be written, we still had something that could go out while
right,
something else is being written.
right. The initial holding statement, because, to be honest with you, Alex, you and I could make up the initial holding statement of 99.9% of every incident that's ever going to happen.
Yeah,
And we don't even know what it is yet.
yeah, exactly.
We know something is going on. We're evaluating it. If appropriate, we're working with local authorities or whomever, and we'll get back with you. I mean,
Yeah,
that's what you're going to say. So
yeah,
why do we spend hours getting that approved when it basically says the same thing?
yeah,
And now everybody is filled in all the air. And then you have to defend it and push back. And it's ridiculous.
yeah. And now you're like I mentioned, you've got two situations to deal with, but that compounds your communications because now you're communicating on two different things, which makes it more difficult in case one has some information come out the other side isn't aware of yet. And now
Right.
it looks like your whole company doesn't know what's going on.
Right. Exactly right. Yeah. I mean, it's not rocket science, but I'm just amazed how often it is completely messed up.
Yeah.
And part of that is, there's no governance document. We don't know who's really, who's on first, who's on second, blah, blah, blah. And then the bad thing happens and it just blows up. And so I beg all of our colleagues to think about this concept of a communications governance document that really helps lead this, and then training your executives so they understand what they all agreed to. And then when the bad thing happens, we have templates, we've got processes, we know who can edit, who can write, who can approve, and we're out of there. But it
Yeah,
takes training, discipline, exercises, and you can actually make that happen.
yeah.
What a concept, right? The last two things I want to mention are important, but so now we've gone through this whole cycle, right? We're almost back up the top of my circle. Is that we have to now do something, right? We have to act. So our job is that once we've gone through all of this, now the rubber has hit the road, my friend, and we have to do something. So plans get activated, teams are deployed, communications are issued, blah, 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 blah. Super important. But I mean, that's the next step, right?
Mhm.
And then what you're constantly doing once you've actually gone through that, making the decision, we've walked through the door, then the last thing is reevaluation. And so that brings us back to the top. So this is, as you pointed out, a contiguous loop. We are constantly doing the same thing over and over again. Because once we've now made the decision and we're moving forward, now we are constantly reevaluating, constantly. Is it working? Is it not working? What's happening? Does it make sense? And then that goes back to situational awareness. How do you know if it's working or not? Because you've gotten situational awareness in that actually helps you. So these 7 things are what we do all the time, over and over and over again. We may have never plotted it out, but this is what we do as an organization, right? As a business.
Yeah, and you adjust as things unfold.
Mhm.
If you're lucky, it doesn't get worse,
Right,
you know,
right.
but
That takes
that's
luck more than
rare.
anything else.
That's rare.
Right, right,
But
right.
if you are doing the things that you point out here, then you can actually adjust, reevaluate, like you said, where you are and pivot when you need to.
Mhm.
And, if you are looking at external sources, hey, my partners aren't complaining. They know what's going on. they're ready at their end. They're waiting for us. They're not complaining. They're not on social media, lambasting us. So we're doing something right with them. So let's keep doing it. Whatever we're doing, let's keep going in the right direction. Or authorities, or showing compassion and caring if Lord forbid that a person is injured or worse. You're showing that first. Not putting a process over people. But if you have the process in place, it will definitely help the people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, I mean, this is a continuum. And I think sometimes people think that this is like a dead end, right? Like we do all this work and then magically it's over. No, no, no. I mean, hopefully the pandemic has proven to us that this is an ongoing process. We're constantly revising, we're constantly doing this, but there is a continuum, and that's our job. Our job as crisis managers, our job as resiliency professionals is to understand that we're not removed from this process. We hopefully are guiding it all the way along. And we understand that we're constantly in this loop. And our job is to keep moving us one step forward, and we're swinging constantly around. So it's just what we do for a living. But
Yeah.
you are.
Believe it or not, we've come to the end of the show, Regina.
Really, Alex, isn't that amazing? Blah,
We
blah, blah,
actually,
blah, blah, right?
we actually got a full topic in a
Yes,
single episode. That is so rare for us.
I know. I don't know. Sometimes we're just so, yeah, we like to talk to each other.
Well, it's always a good chat. That's why, right? So
Always a good chat. Absolutely.
well, thank you so much. And if people do want to read your article, it's on GRC Outlook, and just look for the title Leadership in Times of Crisis by Regina Phelps. Great article, of which we touched on today. So please go check that out. And until next time, Regina, actually next time.
I'll see you in person, DRG, Orlando,
Exactly.
be there.
Yes, I will actually see you in person, and you're going to stop by. We're doing a live broadcast, James Green and myself. So you're going to be one of our guests and come by and have a quick chat with us while we broadcast live.
I can't wait. Sounds like fun.
Either. It's going to be a great time in Orlando.
Absolutely.
So, thanks again, Regina, for a great chat, and everyone watching and listening. Stay prepared, everybody. If you liked that video, thumbs up. If you didn't like that video, thumbs down. But leave me a message and let me know your thoughts. Of course, don't forget to subscribe. And in the meantime, stay prepared, everybody.